life, business, reinvention, and the lessons that outlive us. This is the Dave of the Dead podcast.
Hola, everyone. Welcome back to Dave of the Dead. My guest today, Marissa Solis, has spent her career at the intersection of culture, storytelling, and influence, rising through powerhouse brands like P&G, PepsiCo, and now the NFL, while never losing sight of where she came from. As the daughter of Mexican immigrants, her journey is about ambition, but also grace, resilience, and carrying her identity into rooms that weren't always built with her in mind. And what makes Marissa different isn't just the titles, it's the humanity and the person behind them who I've come to know over many years. And also her ability to navigate the highest levels of corporate America while understanding the emotional weight of representation, family, and legacy. So this is a conversation about literally moving markets and what it means to become living proof that cultural identity is not a limitation. It's actually the advantage that changes the game and people's lives through the fearless leadership of people like Marissa Solis. Marissa, welcome to Dave of the Dead.
Dave, it's such a pleasure being here. Thank you so much. And thanks for the intro, by the way.
I hope you liked it. I'm your new publicist. And it's great.
Amazing.
It's great to see you. It really is. Obviously, I see you all the time in my LinkedIn feed and sometimes at events, but I'm looking forward to this conversation. And truth be told, many don't know, we have had a similar conversation. I had another podcast, if you could believe this. It's called Total Market Talk. I don't know, in the last 10 years. It's been at least 8 to 10 years since we had that conversation.
Oh, it was more than 10 years ago, Dave.
More. I don't even know. I'm dating.
I
I'm
think it was
trying
more
to.
than 10 years ago.
Yeah, it could have been. I'll have to look. I was trying to timestamp it, but regardless, it's been a minute, and I want to unpack, as we say here on Dave of the Dead, life, business, reinvention, and lessons that outlive us. And I hope people can get a little peek behind the curtain of who you are as a person. And many people know and love you, but others, will be hearing this for the first time. So what I like to do, and truth be told, I went back and listened to our previous conversations, so I'm quite educated, but I'd like to just sort of go maybe even a little deeper on where we started. But for those who do not know you, let's start with your early life and growing up in Mexico and sort of take it from there. Please, Marissa.
Yeah, I was born in Mexico City. And I had, at an early age, I grew up very close to Chapultepec. If you're from Mexico City, I would have walks in that beautiful park, which is still very much a part of me. But when I was 6 years old, I lost my father. And that had a very deep impact on me and the trajectory of, who I am and kind of what I do and why I do it. And very quick story, when I lost my dad, at 6, you don't really know. You don't
Right.
know what death is. And I used to write letters to him after he passed, and I would write these letters and put them under my pillow. And not knowing at the time, my mom would take these letters and write back. And she would put them under my pillow. And it started this dialogue with heaven, really. And it allowed me to really dream big. I mean, I used to write all sorts of things to my dad. I wanted to be an Olympic champion and an actress and the president of the United States, everything. It was, it really was the way I preserved and really safeguarded my childhood after that loss. And I loved it. And I carry that with me, those letters, even
You
now.
have them. You have the letters.
I have some of the letters. But what I carry most is just that
Yeah.
spirit of that 6-year-old, when you're writing at that age and you're writing to heaven, and there was no limits to what I thought. There were no barriers. There was no, this can't happen. And everything was about dreams and possibilities, and just as a 6-year-old child sharing those dreams with, my father, who
That's
I
amazing.
saw as a guardian angel, right? So that's the foundation, I think, of who I am. I'm still that 6-year-old kid. I have her very guarded inside me. So when things go bad or, when I have challenges, I just think back to that. And I
Yeah.
think a 6-year-old child is everything. All of us need that.
I want to unpack this a little. I didn't know we would start here, and I did know your dad passed when you were very young. A lot of what you were doing, there's many therapists who do work in this area, journaling and cognitive therapy, and all your feelings were not staying in your mind. They were going on a piece of paper, and heaven was writing back to you. And you were
Heaven was
doing what
writing
many
back.
And you were, as opposed to, a lot of people get stuck and they have to do, as they call it, inner child work. I certainly have done my share of it to unpack things that I couldn't understand. I was sort of emotionally locked at a very young age. You were actually doing the opposite, and dad was writing back through mom. What would he say back to you? And when did you discover that it was mom? Was it like Santa Claus, like years and years later?
I didn't really discover it was mom till years later. I will tell you, through those letters, I got a lot of encouragement. There was nothing that I would say that was, bad, or it wasn't like, well, in order to be an Olympic champion, you need to work hard and train. Like, it was just,
Just
yes,
go
you
for
can
it.
do it.
Possible.
And
The power of yes.
one of the dreams I talked about often was going to what I called the land of wonder. So when I was little, I would watch all these movies that were based in the US. And so I had this image of the United States as this land of wonder, and, the skyscrapers in New York, and when you watch like Miracle on 34th Street. And I just had like this image of the US as this place of dreams and wonder. And I would write often about how one day I would go to this land and it would be this great thing. So you can imagine my mom reading this. My mom was, gosh, I think she was 26 when my dad
Okay.
passed. Single
Okay.
mom with 2 kids, trying to figure things out, and having her child write about, moving to America. I didn't really know, but I wrote that. And I remember my last, when the last letter came, I wrote, I am going to go to the land of wonder and do big things there. And I think that was the last letter. I never got an answer back to that. And then things happened, and my mom eventually married another, an American, and we moved, and it ended up being my dream kind of came true 3-4 years later, because we moved to the States when I was 10. But it's always been for me, like, I wrote about it, it happened. And so I have this belief that anything you visualize, anything you write down, that's kind of the beginning of it
Oh,
coming
yeah.
to life, and
Oh, yeah.
it's coming true. So it is a big part of who I am. Whenever I have thoughts and dreams and things I want to do, I definitely write it down and start to visualize it. And, eventually crazy things happen because you have
Are
it in
they
your.
crazy? Some of my other guests have said it's crazy not to dream and not to go after your dreams. The opposite, and nothing to you was crazy. It was all possible.
It was all possible. And
Yeah,
I still believe that. I still believe
I know you do.
anything's possible if you write it, visualize it. And it started very early. So I was lucky in that regard.
Wow. Okay. Now we don't have to revisit everything we've previously talked about. So I'll give a little, a little biography. So Marissa moved to the Rio Grande Valley, I believe, and
Yes.
her mom and stepdad were restaurant owners, and she learned a
Yes,
lot
we did.
from that experience. And I want to double click into that in a second, because that's also your work ethic and sort of
Yes.
relentless, business mindset. And then we talk about the land of wonder. We'll segue in a minute to, it was Puerto Rico, actually, where you ended up going business-wise eventually, right?
Yes, after school,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
ended
yeah.
up, my very first job was San Juan.
So let's unpack that a little. Talk about what you learned from mom and your stepdad and being in the restaurant business, and then how that forayed into college and then ultimately work life.
Yeah, my parents were, my stepdad was an engineer by trade. My mom was a teacher. And, when you move to the States, they couldn't do those jobs. So they opened up a restaurant. That was kind of the family. That was how we survived, right? A Mexican seafood restaurant. And from the time that I could help, I remember being part of, that restaurant. At first, I would just sit in the back office and do homework. I mean, it was that restaurant was 24/7. And then as soon as I could actually do stuff, it was like, hey, mop the floors, fill up the salt shakers, put the napkins on the table, take out the trash. I mean, anything. And that work ethic of, you know, you got to do what you got to do, right? To survive and to kind of, this is our livelihood and we got to make it work. And, things were hard. I mean, the restaurant business is tough. I never saw my parents because they worked so hard. We were in that restaurant a lot. But one of the early lessons was, anytime I would complain about, well, I don't want to mop floors. Like, why can't I be a waitress or,
Right.
be the hostess? My dad would actually join me in the task and mop with me and say things like, every single job is important. It doesn't matter if you're the head of the restaurant greeting the customers or if you're in the back, mopping the floors, washing the dishes. Like every single part contributes to the whole and everything is important.
Yeah.
We have to be grateful for the opportunity to mop the floors, the opportunity to come to work every day, to put food on the table. He used to say the rest is pilon, which in Mexican language, pilon is like a little extra, the little icing.
Uh-huh.
We always say, we're grateful for food on the table, for our health, for this great job, and the rest is pilon. So I kind of grew up with that
It's
core,
beautiful.
hardcore ethic. And, the other thing, once I was old enough to be a waitress and to actually be waiting tables, I realized, there's a certain anonymity behind that apron. If you serve, in essence, you're invisible. Like people didn't see me, they saw that I was serving them, but they went about their business. They told the stories at the table. Sometimes they were nice, sometimes they were rude. Sometimes they would say ugly things, but I really was nobody. I was front and center. I was serving them, but I was invisible. And I think that invisibility taught me a lot. It taught me humility and observation and empathy, but it also taught me about the plight, right? There's a lot of invisible people out there and the plight of the invisible people who live to serve others. And I think it was an early call of, I need to make sure these invisible people are seen and appreciated, so a lot of my
Yes.
career in life has been that, right? How do
I know
you
it has.
how do you raise these people? Because they just the work ethic and they live to serve and everything they do is for others. So, we should
Absolutely.
elevate. We should
We should.
elevate them.
But you were invisible. So first you had to make yourself visible. Obviously, that was part of, I'm assuming, what you were thinking. There's more, this is the foundation, but I'm going to build on this and I'm not going to be invisible. I'm going to be very visible. And tell a little more of your story, which you can fill in. You ultimately went on to study at Georgetown. You studied,
Yeah.
truth be told, international economics. Interesting. You wanted to be an ambassador.
I
You took the
wanted to be an
foreign service exam.
investor. Yeah.
You did a lot of things. And then let's pivot now to, okay, somehow I'm not clear about how you ended up in Puerto Rico in this really great job with Procter and Gamble. And you're based out of Puerto Rico, but you served other places in the Caribbean and Latin America, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the road not traveled or when there's no direction, right? I went to school to be an ambassador because growing up in the border, that's what I wanted to do. Connect communities, bring people together, elevate the invisible. And I had a conversation after I passed the foreign service exam. I had a conversation with a dear mentor who basically told me, listen, you can go into the foreign service, but the reality is only 2% of officials like make it into ambassadorship. Like, if you want to be an ambassador, you need to go out and make a name for yourself. Obviously, be known, have influence, make lots of money. One day you're going to contribute to somebody's campaign, and that person is going to appoint you to ambassador because that's kind of how the world works. And very big lesson to learn early on. And so a month before graduation, I was like, what do I do now? If I don't go in the foreign service, which is what I had planned, I don't know. And so that's kind of when I just had to carve the path. Procter and Gamble was on campus interviewing. They liked my background, the fact that I had, development economics, that I was from Mexico, that I had studied Latin America. And they said, listen, we have this great opportunity. You can be a brand manager in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And I was like, okay, brand manager. I have no idea what that is.
Right.
No idea what marketing is, but sounds cool. And San Juan, like I knew where it was because I studied, when you study diplomacy, you have to know where everything is. But it was like
Sure.
tiny little island that I've never been to. And I think contrary to what people think, being Mexican and being Puerto Rican are like totally different. It's like different cultures, different food, different everything. So it was fascinating. I loved living in San Juan. I loved becoming part of this new culture and learning the language. I mean, everything, Dave, from the
Yeah.
language of Puerto Rico to the music of Puerto Rico to the food. Like, I just got immersed in the culture and at the same time learned what marketing was and how to market from one of the best marketing companies in the world. I mean, who doesn't want to learn from Procter and Gamble, right? What a consumer is. How do you find the consumer insight, and how do you then latch onto that insight and create a compelling story so that they can come try your product? Like all of the things, right, that are the
Mm-hmm.
basic elements of great marketing. I learned them in an island of whatever 3 million people at the time.
It's
Marketing,
amazing.
yeah, marketing Ariel, which was it's like Puerto Rican Tide, Ariel, marketing Downy. And then going to the Dominican Republic and introducing diapers. Like, the category didn't even exist. People were using cloth, and here we were, and coming in and introducing, the power of a diaper, a disposable diaper to moms, to give them kind of a new freedom, right? So it was really cool. I really enjoyed
You,
those early
you,
days.
you and I share a lot in common. You're what we used to call a proctoid. That's what they call people
I'm
who
a
worked with Procter
proctoid,
and
yeah.
Gamble. I'm a Colgaterian. Your
Oh,
competition.
okay. So there you
I was
go. Yeah.
Colgate Palmolive. I want to
Yes.
point out for our listeners/viewers, there's a theme in Marissa's life, obviously, of boundaryless thinking and anything's possible and complete reinvention and just almost not quite 180, but, leveraging her strengths, but being fearless in taking, the fork in the road and going into marketing and leaning into her Latinidad. And that was a superpower in this case. Although you weren't, a niche, you were the
I
quote
did
unquote
not know
general
it at the
market.
time. Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't know it at the time. I just knew that I was going to this island that seemed really cool,
Yeah.
and I was going to do marketing. I didn't know anything about Latinidad, the Hispanic market, none of that. But interestingly enough, and now I can look back and see, I mean, those were the times when reggaeton was just starting in
Yep.
San Juan. I mean, Daddy Yankee was big at the time. And so there's a lot of things now. My love for reggaeton, my love for just that genre of music came from my time in Puerto Rico, and living the fiestas de San Sebastian and all the things
Yeah.
that you do when you're on the island, which is amazing.
You told a funny story about the accent in Puerto Rico and a lot of S's
Oh
being
my
dropped
God.
and the ends of words being dropped. You were like, "Como?" It
I did
was,
not
yeah.
understand. But even to this day, I keep a lot of expressions from Puerto Rico that I adopted as my own.
You got
Uh,
one? You got one for me, or any off
I
the
mean,
top of your head?
Ave Maria. Coño.
Ave Maria. Oh wow! All right, there
Ave
we go.
Maria.
Y
Coño.
bendito,
I mean,
bendito.
bendito. Yes. Bendito. I mean, a
There's,
lot of, I mean,
yeah,
it holds, that island holds a very special place in my heart.
yeah, for me too. Truth be told, my wife is from Puerto Rico, and I have lived in Puerto Rico. We moved there during COVID, and it was a beautiful time. Beautiful island, beautiful people, and yeah, quite different than growing up in the Rio Grande Valley or Mexico. And yeah, certainly not a
Yes,
monolithic
very different. Very,
community.
very different.
But that was, as you said, you didn't know any different. Everyone was speaking Spanish. And yeah, that was the quote unquote general market. And you didn't do Hispanic marketing while you were at Procter and Gamble. It was just, yeah, general, right? That
Yeah,
was
we
it.
were part of Latin America, so
Yeah,
that was our market, and we
yeah,
were, selling products to the Latin American community, starting with Puerto
exactly.
Rico and then going kind of everywhere. So,
But you basically got an MBA in marketing from Procter, the best training
oh
ground in the
yeah,
world, on the
it was
job.
amazing. Yes,
As yeah, that's a great base to build off of. Okay, so you were there for I forget 3 or 4 years. There was
3 or 4
something in
years.
between, yeah, but your real tenure in your career has been spent at PepsiCo, where I looked at your LinkedIn and you were there for actually, I think, about 8 years doing, again, I know you hate this term, as do I, quote unquote, general market work before you were moved into the role of VP and general manager of what they called at the time a Hispanic business unit. I want to definitely double click into that. Tell me more about the experience. And again, you knew no different. You were in the general
Yeah, no,
market
I mean,
until,
I
yeah.
joined PepsiCo. I did some stints in consulting and politics and different things, and then I joined PepsiCo. Spent 18 years there, doing various roles, right? Primarily marketing, of the snack brands. So think Frito-Lay North America.
Yep.
Um, and yes, I still do not understand general market. You know
Yeah,
how I feel about this thing. I don't
I do.
understand it. I was just marketing our brands, in the US. Most of my early years at PepsiCo, I spent really trying to excel and get ahead. I mean, I really wanted to be a top business leader. I wanted to be CEO one day, or a country leader, or, president of whatever division. I mean, I had my sights set very high, and I worked very hard to be seen and recognized as that great
Mm-hmm.
business leader, period, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
Never wanted to be seen as a female business leader. I never wanted to be seen as a Latina business leader. Forget that. It was always, I tried to toe the line, um, you know, very well. And if you know PepsiCo, I mean, PepsiCo is a culture in and of itself. It's very addictive. I mean, the pace, the glory of the win. There was a saying at Pepsi, there still is, you're only as good as your last win.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would win and get the glory, and then it was like, okay, what's next? And then you would get there and get the glory, and what's next? And there was always a what's next. And I was really addicted to all of that. And later in my career, I guess maybe 10 years in, I got a phone call from very high up, the CEO at the time of the beverage organization,
Mm-hmm.
who wanted to create a business unit for Hispanics. There's
Mm-hmm.
60 million Hispanics. We think there's an opportunity, and we think you're the right person to do this. Um, and I said no, like immediately. I was like, hell
Really?
no. Oh
Like, don't
yeah.
put me in that box. I'm not about doing niche marketing or
Yeah.
what?
I mean,
Why no?
it was interesting. There were two things. One was definitely, do not put me in that box. Like, why are you asking me? Just because I'm a Latina, now you're going to put me in this box. But the second one was, quite frankly, and I'm ashamed to admit it now, but I want something bigger. Like, put
Right.
me in your biggest growth opportunity, because that's who I am. I'm going to bring the growth and bring the value. And I want the biggest growth opportunity. And
Right.
I was not seeing it. There's a gentleman named Al Carey
I know who he is.
who I talk about a lot because wasn't only a dear mentor, he was a champion. He is one of the best leaders I've ever had the privilege to serve under. And he's the one that basically said to me, you are not seeing the opportunity. You aren't seeing what this community represents to the growth of PepsiCo. You know, they over-index in our products. By the way, we have a competitor in Coke that is deeply entrenched in this community. And, you know, at the time,
Hmm.
very competitive and really winning the community. And we need you. You have this insight. You've lived there. You've worked with this community. You know how to, you know, not just live in the community, but you know how to inspire this community. And you're the one that can do this. And by the way, you're a great business leader. So you can create
Right.
a business unit. Like, this isn't marketing. We need product development. We need a sales organization. We need, you know, finance. We need an entire unit dedicated to the 60 million Latinos in the US that can really unlock some growth. And, you know, I was still not convinced, believe it or not, after that speech, but I love this man dearly and I would never say no to him. And so I took
Wow.
the job.
Al
I took
Carey,
the
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was, you know, hesitant. And I took the job and I started to dig in. And I'm telling you, I mean, now it's years later, but this job changed my life, my career. This job gave me my why. You know, you always talk about the what, like what we do. We
Yes.
grow businesses. We add value to an organization, all the things. But there's a why. Once you know the why that you do things, it just changes your entire perspective, the way you show up, the way you come to work. And I discovered my why because I started to work with a team of Latino employees who were, again, invisible, had never been seen by the organization
Exactly.
as real leaders. And here they are, committed and resilient. And we started to build this business unit. And I will tell you what really did it for me. And to this day, I tell the story because we started to realize there are thousands, and you know this, you know, living in Puerto Rico, but
Yeah.
there's thousands and thousands and thousands of small little businesses everywhere in the US, little
Hmm.
colmaditos, little tienditas that are owned by Latinos, um, where our product wasn't in because nobody took the time to service them or go and speak to them in their language or do anything. So we weren't present in any of these little stores and colmados. So when you add up, it's millions of dollars that we were
Oh,
living
yeah.
on the table. And Coke was there. Oh, trust me, Coke was grassroots in there. And so to me, one of the biggest things we did was create this Latino sales organization, Latinos for Latinos, that
Hmm.
would not only walk into these colmaditos and say, Señor David, aquí le tenemos producto. Let's like talk. How can we serve you? Yes, there was a sale going on, and yes, there were dollars. But beyond that, Señor David, I'm looking at your store. Gosh, we can really upgrade your menu boards. We can paint the outside of your store and beautify the community around you. There were so many things that we started to partner with and do with these small business owners that literally transformed communities. Yes, we got our product in there.
Of course.
Yes, we made a lot of money doing so, right? But we also got in there and worked with communities and made an impact and became part of those communities and beautified them and elevated them. And to me, when I saw that and saw that transformation and what it did to people, I was like, this is the power of community and the servant leadership mindset. Yes, there's dollars and profit and all the things because
Yeah.
you wouldn't be in business if there weren't, but so much more, right, in terms of impact. And that was, I mean, that pride, all of that really unlocked a lot for me. So once I kind of built that, we, delivered the goods, so to speak, it just gained a lot of momentum. And of course, I ended up getting promoted and moving on, but it became a legacy for me. My dear friend Esperanza Tisdale, which I think who I
I
think
do.
took over the beverage side of it. And then Antonio Escalona took over the snack side. So they created, two different ones. And then it was like huge and something big, and a big legacy for PepsiCo. And then I went on to lead brands and in the quote unquote general market, as you say,
Yes.
or as you call it.
Yeah.
But I was never the same. I mean, when I went back to lead the brands at Frito-Lay, I didn't think about general market versus Hispanic market. I had that Latino market in my heart. And it was like, okay, there's 60 million Latinos who are driving growth. Like everything we do with these brands, we have to have them in mind. We have to have everyone in mind, yes, but like we need to have them in mind and not treat them as like a separate segment thing that we got to deal with. And so a lot of the things that I did in that era, I mean, that's when I worked with Bad Bunny for the first time. He was just starting out. This was
Interesting. So we'll have to triangulate that because that obviously,
2016.
yeah.
2016, Bad Bunny, he was just getting big. His album, I forget, 2 albums ago, was starting to get big, and we did a series of commercials with him for Cheetos, and we shot them in Boyles Heights in LA.
Oh, right.
And
It was Flamin' Hot with him.
it was Flaming Hot Cheetos, and we did this whole collaboration with him, and it was awesome. I mean, I remember working with him was a highlight of my career, and all that little project became this huge thing for Cheetos. And he was still up and coming but popular. I remember we didn't have any kind of big security or anything like that because he's just an up and coming artist, but
Yeah.
we're in Boyle Heights and we're shooting in the middle of the street, and there's a park in the middle of Boyles Heights. And as we're shooting, all of a sudden we saw like 4, young ladies come to start to see. And then these 4 young ladies become 8 young ladies. And then these 8 young ladies become 16. And all of a sudden there's like a crowd forming. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And it started to get, a little like, okay, there's a big crowd. They're all watching him. They want to be him. I don't know if it's safe, if they're going to all of a sudden storm him, what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, and we had to pivot and shoot somewhere else because it was getting too crowded, and, it wasn't allowing us to shoot. And then there was a safety issue and all the things. And then press started to come and, they started to take pictures, craziness. So we pull him in, to a little store where we were at. And I mean, Benito is just the most humble, the most, he's always thinking about his people. And I remember telling him, hey, I don't think this is safe anymore. We're going to move the shoot. And so we're going to put you in, your car through the back. The car's going to take you to the new location and you're going to be fine. No worries. And he was like, oh, yeah, whatever. So we had this plan. He gets in the car and he leaves. And lo and behold, 2 minutes later, the car comes around the front where all the people are, and he gets out through the sunroof and just starts like, hey, and, touching people and, saying hello. And I mean, they loved it. And from that moment, I was like, this guy just,
It's going places. Yeah.
his charisma, his love for the Latino community. We were in the middle of Boyles Heights. Like, he had no concerns at all about safety or was there going to be a riot? He just wanted to be with his people. And it was so awesome. And that was like the first time I worked with him. And then, of course, years later, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
We will definitely
Um,
do that. Yeah. I would argue you and he have a lot in common, Marissa. You
yeah,
and
he
Bad
has
Bunny.
the same manager. He has the same
Yeah.
people that surround him, Like, yes, he got big and ultra famous, but he is Benito, like at the core. Like, he didn't lose who he was, and he's so humble. And it just, to me, that's like the model that I aspire and live by because, no matter how powerful or big or whatever rooms you're in, you
Right.
just have to remember, like, who got you here, where you come from, all those roots, and
Yes.
get a little humble because no one's above that.
Well,
So
you were taught that from a very young age, as you
from a
shared, and
very
you've
young
taken
age,
that with
from a
you
very
your
young
whole
age.
life. And I would argue, by the way, sort of the light bulb went off when I did the Hispanic business unit. No, it didn't. It went off when you were a waitress and you said, I want to be visible and I want to make invisible people visible. What the Hispanic business unit did, it just gave you the vehicle to have that impact at scale. And your whys sort of came together. I was calling back because you had just said, you were
Yeah.
younger even when, yeah, it's kind of
But you
cool.
know what I think the lesson for others in this is this. I did not see it. I mean, it was so in front of my face and I didn't see the power of our community. I was not just a bit embarrassed, which that's terrible to say, like, but I was also like, no, I want the bigger job. Give me the bigger job. And I didn't realize that was the big job. Um,
Yep.
and I think learning that and seeing the incredible economic power that our community carries. I mean, PepsiCo is a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 50 company.
Yeah.
That the amount of growth that this community represents, I just didn't see it. And it was like, it took someone not Latino to tell me, hey, there is an opportunity here and you can unlock it. Right. So it took someone else, not of our culture, to tell me that. And it's
Yeah.
a really good learning because I think Latinos need to understand and really just understand the power of and the influence that our community has. You hear it because everyone talks about the business case. We've been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
Um, but I just don't think all of us have truly either seen it or internalized it. And it is a powerful thing. When you
It
talk about
absolutely
the
is.
total, yeah, when you talk about the total market, the general market, whatever, I don't
Yeah.
even know what the terms, it's like, guys, we are the total market. Like,
Yeah.
understand that because it's powerful.
Yeah. I like to quote that 100% of growth is coming from Latino, Black, Asian, and communities of color. 100%. That's a pretty
Oh, yeah.
important number, wouldn't you say, Marissa?
It
Maybe
is a
people should
very
take
important
note of that
number.
number. It's
And
crazy.
I quote that number all the time because
Yeah.
you cannot grow. I mean, even the most one of the most powerful platforms, which is the NFL, we cannot grow without the power of, the minority community, the multicultural community. Like, that's the future,
The
you know,
growth community. How about that?
that
We're
yeah, the
all of the
growth
growth.
community, that's the future fan base. And so
That's that's
we
it.
have
I
to
want to double
recognize.
click into the NFL. Let's just really quick while we're on this, because obviously there's these three letters, DEI, which, obviously is equated with, handouts and, getting things for free. And while it was a good thing, when it started, obviously it was shut down and people are misconstruing marketing to communities of color, I'll say, or to where the growth is coming from, with it being some sort of handout. Could you just unpack that a little and then maybe, yeah, segue into why it was very much also a business decision working with Benito, on this Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think DEI is a little bit like total market in the sense that it's a term, it's a I don't know, people use
Yeah,
it
it's a
for different
buzzword.
things. And it's a buzzword or it was in many companies like an organization or a strategy. At the end of the day, being inclusive, telling everybody stories, making everybody feel like they're part of something, that is not only as human beings the right thing to do, it's a business strategy. I mean, why would you leave anybody out that can contribute to your economic growth? I don't get it. So, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I haven't changed the way I work nor the strategies of how we do
Right.
things, because to us it's about making sure everybody feels part of the movement and what we're doing, and also that we grow. I mean, it for the league it's a little different. It's a little nuanced and more powerful, I think, because if you're in a company like PepsiCo, you sell widgets, right? I
Yep.
sell a can of Pepsi or a bag of Doritos, and so I need to put these Doritos and Pepsi in the hands of the Latino community who over-index in the consumption of these products so that I can continue to grow. Great. The
Hmm.
league is very different. We don't have widgets. We don't sell anything. Um, our currency is relevance. How we grow, how we get, the big media deals, how we get our sponsors, like all the things that make our business what it is and make our business
Hmm.
growth is all based on relevance and buzz. And so you have to be relevant to everybody and those that are driving the culture and influencing. And when I say culture, I mean culture with the big C, right? What's happening
Hmm.
around us? Who's influencing the buzz, the conversation, who's driving the conversation? Um, it's really important that we're part of it. And, 5 years ago, when we looked around and realized that the majority of our fan base was over the age of 55 and extremely homogenous, we knew we had a problem. Not because those people were bad fans, we want them to be our fans, but because we weren't reaching a whole bunch of other people that, by the way, as you
Right.
trace the future of where the
Growth
trends
is
and
coming
demographics
from.
and where growth is coming from, like if we don't get
Yes.
on it, we're going to be irrelevant. And that means we're going to disappear. So it was very important for us to have a different strategy and focus around these growth audiences. And these growth audiences are simple. We say them all the time, but Gen Z, Gen A, right? Future generations, women, right? It's very important that we reach women and the multicultural community, which, by the way, Gen Z and Gen A, 35% are multicultural. And who's leading that multicultural growth? Latinos, Asian Americans, right? Like, we need to be cognizant of this and make sure that these people not only see themselves, that's another thing, not only see themselves in the sport, right? Yes, they need to be represented, but they need to feel part of it. Like, this is part of their lives, their rituals,
Yeah.
their day to
There's
day. And
there's to be an
that
emotional connection to it. Yeah. And by the way, I
is
would add on a global scale, that's the other part. I want to say I had, as you know, your friend and colleague Javier Farfan on the show. And he was talking about, I want to say out the fastest growing market might be Mexico, I believe he said, or certainly I know the NFL has games that must be played outside the US. And oh, wait a minute, who's the biggest global star? Could it be Benito? So outside of the US too, that made a lot of sense. Do you want to build on that or?
Well, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the US strategy was key, right? Because we needed to make sure that we were relevant to our US audience,
Right.
which is very diverse, and make sure those growth audiences, Gen Z, Gen A, women, multicultural, was very much part of our US strategy. Fast forward, there is also a very important global expansion strategy.
Yes.
Um, and that strategy is again very different for the league because as a marketer, and when you're a marketer, the league is by far the market leader in the US. We are the behemoth of sports, the biggest platform, the most viewed, all the things. Outside of the US, not so much, right?
Right.
We are a challenger brand. And so that mindset has to change how we show up, how we communicate, how we educate others about our sport is very different abroad than it is in the US because we're coming from a very different place. And so, yes, education, inclusion, participation, those things matter 10 times, right? Because you need to bring a vast global audience into the fold.
Yeah.
And so when you think about Benito, it was never a Latino strategy. I think
Right.
people think like, oh, this is amazing and all that you did for the Latino community. And yes, I mean, of course, he represents us and, all the things, and we're incredibly proud. But this is, again, back to the learning of the Hispanic business unit and back to these things that I wish our Latino community understood. We are not a segment. Like, we are the market. Like, Benito was not a Latino strategy. Benito was a global strategy. Why? Because he's the artist of the moment. He's the most influential. Like, what he does, people are following. I think one of the countries that most follows him is China. Like, don't
Yeah.
understand the language he sings in, have nothing to do with the Latino culture, and yet they love him and they embrace
Yep.
Latino culture and they embrace the language and all of the things, because the biggest learning is, who you are when you unapologetically show up as yourself
Yeah.
and showcase that to the world reacts and embraces it. And that is Benito, 100%. And that is what I wish our community knew or learned or understood. I don't think they do fully yet.
Yeah.
I think some parts of our community do, but not all, because I still enter circles within our community and we're still talking about us as a segment and how
Yeah.
can we get more dollars from here to here. And it's like, guys, no, 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 no. Like, the paradigm needs to shift.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's how you've always thought, though. Yeah.
yeah,
You're not put in that little
yeah.
box or that segment or that. Yeah.
We
That's
had
not how
this
you
debate
think.
10 years ago, Dave.
We did. I'm a debate. I'm with you. Um, Tell me about just whatever you can. I don't know what you're able to share. Like, so what was it like behind the curtain of this spectacle, this incredible event featuring Benito, your friend from the Flamin' Hot Cheetos days, who's putting on this incredible show, by the way? And I'd love to hear your comments on the nuances of it, the winks at Puerto Rico. And
Yeah.
uh, what did
I
that
want
mean to
to
you? What
tell
was that
you, like,
like?
I'll kind of give you the full, at least from my point of view. Obviously, this is
Sure.
biased. Marissa Solis's point of view of how kind of things went down. So when I joined the league, I was maybe 3 months in the league. And I had the opportunity to address our owners in our
Hmm.
owners meeting and educate them about the Latino community, because of course it was going to become a growth audience. And I remember in that meeting having the picture of Bad Bunny behind me and saying, who knows who this person is? Nobody in the
Hmm.
room knew who he was. And at the time saying, this is the most streamed artist in the world. Not Taylor Swift, it's Bad Bunny. And people were like, who is this person? Are you crazy? Like, that was 4
Really?
years before this Super Bowl. Um,
Wow.
and it took probably that time to educate, to get the owners behind it. Not Bad Bunny himself, but just the Latino culture, how it was impacting and influencing, young people and everything in culture and buzz. And so that kind of started. And then, of course, the decision to bring Bad Bunny, which, by the way, I did not make. I like to, I didn't
Okay.
make that decision. That decision comes from, there's a whole process with Rock Nation and the NFL and
Right, right,
Apple
right.
Music. But about the time that decision was made, I happened to be just coincidentally in San Juan at his first residency. I got to be there in the debut of his residency and just see it front and center. And it was, for me, one of the most powerful nights. I mean, we cried, the pride and the storytelling of that island. I mean, unless you have lived there or part of it, it's very difficult, right, to really
Yes.
comprehend. And it was only Puerto Ricans because it was in San Juan. It was his first show. So he only allowed Puerto Ricans in there. And of
Yep.
course, honorary Puerto Ricans like me. It was
Yep.
so powerful. Fast forward to, a few weeks later when he's announced, and I'm just besides myself. And the fact that I'm part of him and this announcement, and I'm going to get to be part of all of this stuff. And I enjoyed it for maybe a day. And then the backlash came. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
incredible backlash, like I've never seen, and things I couldn't believe. I mean, I think you saw it, the world saw it, but just very harsh backlash around he's not American, he doesn't represent American values. How could you have an artist in Spanish carry the Super Bowl stage? Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
insane. This is a travesty. I mean,
Yep.
all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was loud, very loud. And I think it was a very tough time for me, quite frankly, as a Latina, to see that and just see what parts of the world, I guess, think, right? And that those things are still out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know the community talks about it a lot with everything going on with DEI, but I don't think I had personally experienced it until then. And it was very personal, and of course. And I think what makes me the most proud is that even through all of that, and it was directed at everyone, right? Everyone at the league, Bad Bunny himself, anyone who associated themselves with a halftime show. But I think to have someone like Roger Goodell, who's such a figure, right? And in American culture, and he's the commissioner of the most powerful sports league in America, come out and say, we're not changing a thing. Like, we are standing by our decision. He is our artist. We are fully 100% committed. That was awesome. Like, when that happened, I mean, the backlash was still there, whatever.
Sure.
But I think I was so proud to be part of this organization. And then, I got to be part of it. I was very much part of it. I mean, I was part of the broadcast and got to see all the rehearsals, and, I was on the inside. And that day, even after seeing it 10,000 times, right? Because you have
Mm-hmm.
to 10,000 times. I mean, you saw it. I cried. I was so proud. Like, I was every Latino who saw themselves in every part of that story, whether it was the nail
Yes.
salon, the,
Oh, yeah.
the
We
baby,
knew
or
people. We
the
literally
kid in
knew
the
people.
wedding. Yeah, the kid in the wedding.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing was. And then I think the biggest lesson he left us is, you know, reframing. Again, this is all about reframing. When you say God bless America, and by America, I mean, and he says
Every
every
bit of
single
America. Yeah.
Latin American country, right? Including Puerto Rico. I think that was, to me, like, wow. Like, here's a person who unapologetically sees our community front and center. Like, we're mainstream. This is the message, people. And by the way, a message of hope and unity. Like, it's not just the Americas, right? It's the whole world coming together in love and all of the things. I mean, Dave, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll live a moment like that again, but it was incredible. It
Yeah.
was incredible.
On every level, on every
On
possible
every
level.
level.
I know.
Personal, professional, and
Yeah.
everything in between. And by the way, he's still the same Benito. Like,
I
he's
was
a
going to ask you that.
global, massive superstar. Same Benito. He has his same manager, Same
Yes,
company.
Noah. Yeah,
I mean, holy shit. Like, and sorry to curse on your
it's
podcast,
quite a rest. Cursing is allowed on Dave of the Dead.
but oh my God, like he is really the epitome of representing your culture, humble, all the
Yeah,
things, and yet one of the most powerful people in the world. Like,
literally,
it's
literally.
so cool.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful. And thank you
it's beautiful.
for helping to make that happen. I know you said it took a village, but you were certainly a part of that
It took a
village.
village. I'd like to think that I had a little part of influencing
Of
that.
course you
But yeah.
did. Of course you did. Are you kidding me? Well, I literally, this was part two. We had a 10-year plus gap in between. There needs to be a part three because I have millions of more questions for you, but I know you got to go. So I want to end on this book,
Part three,
part three
yes.
coming soon. I want to end on this question. I didn't know where we were going to start, but talk about the letters to your dad. I wasn't aware of that. So let's end on this question. If you were writing a letter to your dad or a sentence to your dad, like what would you tell him now? What do you think he would say back to you, having now experienced everything you have in this life
Oh
and
God.
he's watching you? What would you say to him and what would he
I
say to
mean,
you?
I think he'd obviously be very proud. He always was, and he always encouraged me. But I think that I would say to him, not even in my wildest dreams. I mean, I wrote about many things in those letters. I was
Yeah.
many things, from champion to actress to billionaire, whatever. Never in any of those letters in my wildest dreams did I ever think, A, I would be at the National Football League, B, that I would experience a day like the Bad Bunny, and
Yeah.
that I would be in this position where I could really, lift others around me. Like, never. So it's just the power of like, the dreams are big, but they can always be bigger. Like, there is no limit, right? So I
Yeah.
think he would say, yeah, keep going.
He
What's the
absolutely
next
would.
thing? Yeah.
100%. Well,
So
we're all saying that, by the way, and I know you're a very humble person. You don't like to take credit, but what you're doing is important work, and you're doing good by doing good, so to speak. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being on Dave of the Dead. It's a pleasure having you back.
thanks for
And
having me. Let's do part 3.
we got to do part three. Marissa Solis, SVP, Global Brand and Consumer Marketing head from the National Football League. Thank you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Dave.
Peace.
Life, business, reinvention, and the lessons that outlive us. This is the Dave of the Dead podcast.